Okay, so we will be starting the webinar. Hello and welcome everyone to the fifth RDI webinar of the EaP Plus project. So today we'll be looking at a success story within the thematic of engaging in academia-industry collaboration. This will be on developing Industry 4.0 in Ukraine. So just an outline of the agenda. So we will just shortly introduce the EaP Plus project. Then today's speaker, Alexander Yurchak, will give the main presentation on the concept of Center 4.0. Then we will pass to some conclusions towards the end of the webinar. And finally, we will have a session on questions and answers. So for the session of questions and answers, I will ask you to type your questions in the conversation chat, and then we will go through with Alexander and answer them one by one. So just a short overview of our project. So EaP Plus was launched in September 2016. So it's a three-year-long coordination and support action dedicated to EU EaP STI cooperation. It builds on the experience of some previous projects that were focusing on the region, such as INCONET EaP. So it includes partners from all 6 EaP countries, so Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, Belarus, Moldova, and Ukraine, and also from some EU member states. And it has 3 core objectives, that is to support EU EaP policy dialogue, to foster interaction between EU EaP researchers and boost participation in Horizon 2020, and to enhance the EU EaP research innovation partnerships. So the RDI webinars is a series of 6 webinars. So far, we've held 4 of them. Today, we're having the 5th one that focuses on engaging in academia-industry collaboration. And the final webinar in the series will be held in May 2019. So the topic of this will be internationalization of RDI activities, exploring the models of international innovation partnerships. And we will inform you more on this in due time. So just a few words. Today's main speaker will be Alexander Yurchak. He's the CEO in Association of Industrial Automation of Ukraine. He has over 25 years of experience, and he actually spent 12 years working abroad. Then in 2005, he came back to Ukraine, and he was involved in several projects. And finally, in 2016, he founded the National Movement of Industry 4.0 in Ukraine, and this was developed from them since. And myself, just shortly, I'm a consultant at InnoTSD in France, which is a consulting firm in France, and we've been working. Sorry, there is some background noise. Yeah, so I've been working on many Horizon 2020 projects, and EaP Plus is one of them. So, Alexander, I will hand over the word to you. Can you take over the presentation?
Yeah, just a minute. Hello, everybody. Can you see my presentation?
I can't see it yet.
Just a minute, because I hope I switch it.
I can see you took over the presenter, right? So.
Yeah, maybe I should just demonstrate my screen.
Okay, it's loading, just a few seconds. Yes, that's fine. Can you just, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Christina, for introduction. So hello, everybody. Maybe I start with a little bit with history of our association. So our association was created 7 years ago. now it includes more than 50 members, including 17 universities. And in 2016, we created national movement Industry 4.0. It's natural for us because most of our members, they are players in industrial automation and IT markets, so it's obvious that we were very interested to support this worldwide movement and concept Industry 4.0. So, but we extended, of course, the context and the market involved also to different like machine building, aerospace, electronics, software development, and so on. So it's really was considered like common platform for development all industrial high-tech sector. Today it includes more than 100 members. It remains like non-formal movement with council, but it's not like our association. It's not still some let's say official body or institution. We also are a member of Digital Agenda Ukraine. It's something like pro-government program of digitization of Ukrainian economy, where we are responsible for this direction, Industry 4.0. And last year we proposed also the project of national strategy, Industry 4.0. I will tell later a bit more about that. So let's clarify what is in our understanding Industry 4.0. This is a famous framework from Pricewaterhouse. It's almost about technologies. So we see the external circle. It's almost about different kind of technology. Inside you see new technology. Inside there are three main elements in Industry 4.0. First one about digitization and integration, vertical and horizontal value chain. If you take any enterprise, industrial manufacturing enterprise, you find this axis, vertical and horizontal. The second element is about digitization of product and services. Typical example is driverless car, for example. And third one is digital business model and customer access. So it's also a very known example like Uber or Airbnb, and we can find the same example in manufacturing, for example, compressor from German Kaiser Kompressoren and Michelin and General Electric and so on. They really change business model. So, but it's really impossible to change business model without all this new technology, and where the data and analytics are really core capability. So considering such technology, such approach, what is the issue typical in the country like Ukraine? I mean, the not really mature country. First of all, we find this dependence or technology 3.0. I mean that classical automation and IT technology based on sensor and programmable controller and human-machine interface and so on. Because the level of automation, penetration of automation technology in our country to less than 50%. Of course, we cannot apply the new technology like big data or Internet of Things if you don't have just access to the sensor, to data. So it's really the first problem we consider implementing such approach. The second one is the startup, because we have, I will tell later, a lot of many thousand, 100,000 developers, software developers, but it's really not so mature. So if we compete in global market, we should really be sure what are our positioning in this segment or another one, and really be well positioned and well targeted with all this technology and our competitive position. So we consider all this issue in our approach, in our strategy, and we work a lot of on analytics. This is our first so-called landscape, where we place on the map different mapping, different segment, our developer, software developer. You can see here all together with also with some international corporation like Schneider, Siemens, and Bosch. But we have here almost 50 Ukrainian developers in different segments. So as I said, it was 3 years ago. Now we can multiply this number by 3. We will renovate, update this picture this year. And there is a practical question, how we apply all this technology to real life. We use several framework or model, we can say, which explain how this technology go to the market. At the opposite of this picture, you see the target industry. Typically, we find such industry in every country, like manufacturing, energy, utilities, infrastructure, city, agro, and so on. So we say that they are smart industry, smart industry if somebody provide them smart products, services, and solution. Excuse me. And typically you find several category of provider of such solution, like machine builder and process engineering company, component maker, global automation IT vendors, control system integrator and IT integrator, startups, software developer. All they are member of ecosystem of Industry 4.0. And of course they can provide this smart product service solution if they are based on technology 4.0, if they have good culture, I mean, first of all, cooperation, collaboration, and so on. And they care about their capability, like really new skills in IT technologies and other technologies. They care about talent. They have well-organized processes, R&D. They are based on international standards, agile culture, and so on. And of course, foundation of all this is innovative infrastructure or ecosystem, which have a much more element. So this ideal picture, how it can work, and if we have this, let's say, framework or model, we can then consider how it works in life. Well, the first problem we have in Ukraine is that we have really a huge number of software developers, but typically most of them work on outsourcing. So they don't provide their product and services for local economy. But anyway, in all other things, they are really very well organized. You can find, I hope this presentation will be sent to you, and you can download by this link as a complete guide in English of our IT ecosystem. It's quite recent. It was announced last week. And typically there are excuse me, there are a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics and facts, how it's growing. Typically it's growing 30% per year, and it's quite successful, and well, there are really the facts like almost 200 software developers and so on. So it's really leading industry in Ukraine in high-tech area. And it's quite different picture if we consider just industrial high-tech. I mean, like complex engineering, on industrial automation, on designing or machine building and so on. Typically, we don't have many elements here because they are just not active in Industry 4.0. I mean that, of course, we have a lot of machine builder, of process engineering company, but they are not still not applying this technology. They heard about that. They know that it exists, but it perceive it like something like hype or the future. So they are laggard if we're talking about innovation curve. They are still laggard in this approach and penetration. And biggest problem we have that if we are looking at the state or status of element of innovative ecosystem, it's almost absent. So if I resume this situation with on the market, we can consider three main issues. Like the first one, we did not have till now a national strategy. Now we have like project, but it's not still approved by state. With this balanced ecosystem, especially comparing to IT sector, IT service sector, And weak innovation focus on 4.0, you are talking about all player on this market. So the question is how to balance. And typically in such situation, our association act like facilitator. Our core capability is really to build such collective asset. So we have information and we facilitate collaboration between different actors like international vendors, local producers, so on. We have access to all local cases, issue. We know the customer experience. We make technology insight, expert opinion, so on. All that to really to provide and to know what is industry expertise by different branch, how to apply international standards, and we define strategy and best practice. And having all that, we are able to develop common tools or asset for collaboration, developer, or ecosystem. So we applied all these things a bit ad hoc. I mean, it was a bit spontaneous, not very systematic, but it's changed, of course, during years. It changed. Today we apply almost classical cluster approach, where we have 7 category of player in our ecosystem, and all these turn around Industry 4.0. We identified a common issue or common market problem, like standardization, like management of talent, innovation, access to fund and export. And we try to propose to a player some common tools how to resolve, how to cope with this issue, like export program, like we have a technical committee which reported to national organization of standardization. We have network of Center 4.0, I will tell later about that, and many other things. So this is our model how today our association work. Of course, it's not only about strategy. We are very strategic, and me personally, I like a lot of things about strategy. But we try to be much more practical, because you know that our market is really not stable, and most of players are really very pragmatical. So we developed such program like actionable partnership. It means really very short-term action, but in strategic direction. Yeah, you know maybe this expression, think big, act small, or start small and scale fast. So start small is really about actionable partnership program. So we do, it means that we try to do many things in collaboration. For example, we developed first case study with our innovator like IT Enterprise, or this is IT developer on FED or Interpipe. It's a known end user. So we developed a first case study because it's really tools how to educate market, how to prove that technology 4.0 really work. We also have a lot of analytical report. This, what I showed, is just one of them, like landscape of industry. But it also was developed together with market player like CIS events and a group of experts. And so on. I will not read all this line. Well, you can read it. But the idea is that we have such small steps, small action, really a lot. So last year it was around 30 small action, or just example of collaboration is in 2, 3 or more organizations. This is our model of innovative ecosystem, because we really, how to say, a little bit worried that penetration of technology 4.0, like innovative technology, is really rather slow in Ukraine comparing to Western Europe, comparing to other countries. And we try to understand why we have so many university or scientific institute, but the level of innovation or coming to industry is really low. And this is also model we use like checklist, so you see typical innovation cycle starting from your idea. This is innovation zone, which its own element of institution which work here in this zone. And then your idea go to incubation zone, it becomes MVP, for example. And what is really different in manufacturing, in industrial high tech, you should have this experience zone where your MVP should be tested and proved and maybe certified to industrial standards. And only after that it can go to the market. Market means end user and all this ecosystem I just explained it. Machine builder, process engineer, system integrator, software developer, and so on. All these guys who provide a complete solution to and product to end user. So we use such picture like also, as I explained, like model, like checklist, because if you go to any industry or, for example, any region, we can make just even express audit and just to ask our partner or player, do you have, for example, acting in your region venture capital fund? Or do you have an incubator accelerator? Or do you have some test labs or labs like fab labs or application center where this your MVP product can be really proved and certified? If you don't have, it means that you have problem with your innovation ecosystem. It will not work. And this is why this explanation why our end user, local end user, but also international end user do not have so much innovation from our developer. And this is what I did to create a center 4.0 based on university. I will tell later how we try to fill this gap in ecosystem. So a little bit more about our work with university and about Center 4.0. So local context with university, as I said, we have 17, but totally in Ukraine we have more than 300 universities. It's heritage of Soviet Union, so every year there are almost 40,000 young engineers graduated from this university. But of course, it's much exceed market needs, local market needs. And there is issue with this university because almost of them are state universities. So typically, they also heritage from Soviet Union. They have very weak market orientation. So our commercial player in associations, they complain that in fact if they give some equipment or they help to university, but technical training program are outdated. Or we have really issue with contribution to market education, because with all this technology 4.0, the first thing markets should do is really educate end user, just to stimulate demand. And so on. But anyway, this is really till now they have very strong potential. University are main talent source for our IT industry and of course for other high-tech industry. So this is context of last 5 years, and we tried a lot to attract university to cooperation in our association, in this cluster approach and so on. And frankly speaking, it was really tough. For example, and it's not a question of money. For example, we had the international project called TATU. It's Training in Automation Technology for Ukraine. It was campus project during 2013-2016. There were 5 European countries like Ireland, Belgium, Germany, Austria, Spain involved with this project, and the goal was to provide modern commercial training in automation technology for Ukrainian local market. There were 5 universities for different cities. And the cost of project was 800,000 euro, but it was not successful. Why? Just because the main problem was connection to local market. The local university just did not well specify the market needs, which courses or which needs in education, local end user needs. So it was rather like copy-paste from maybe German training courses, as I exaggerate, but anyway, it was not so far from this point. Anyway, it did not work. And the second issue was that even we had 3 from these 5 Ukrainian university members of our association, they did not communicate to our executive direction some problems, some issues. So it's typical also for our universities that they do not communicate too much to other player, and the communication is really a huge issue. So it's typical example that even you have a lot of potential, a lot of university, it doesn't mean that they are really integrated into innovative ecosystem. And if I resume situation on the market, we have now many such gaps which are growing, and especially the most serious for us fact is that we have this balance or gap between IT outsourcing, which consists almost 70% of IT industry, and industrial high-tech, because industrial high-tech are almost oriented to local market, but they cannot compete for talent, for example, with IT outsource, which are placed on global market. They pay high salary to their worker, and the final result of this competition is just brain drain. Yeah, which is well-known phenomena, well drain. So to cope with this situation, was maybe one of main idea why we need change situation in this university. And last year we created our, let's say, concept. We tried to change situation, introducing a new concept of Center 4.0. We say that maybe we should stop this situation not outside of university, but inside of them. We should change the role of university, not just provide good and modern education for students, because it's not enough, because then all the students go to IT industry, or does they go abroad? So we say that new centers should be like, first of all, it's network and hub. They should be center of local, regional, or industrial ecosystem. Try to attract different kind of player, as I mentioned it, system integrator, developer, and user, and so on, in their, let's say, ecosystem. The second one, they should provide really new level of training program with modern skill of Industry 4.0. The third one, they should really, this is also a way of attraction and recognition to educate market, because today's situation looks like professor write article and for another professor, they live in their own environment, and it's not the level of right materials which serve to market education. And fourth one role is about R&D activity, because we say that, okay, guys, if you have a lot of laboratories, you have, and many, also it's a fact that many professors, they not just teach, but they also do a lot of practical work. So we say that maybe you can be better integrated with all this activity into market context, local market context. We set up all this new role. We really clarified all this function. We made the agreement and keep KPI on all this role. And the role of our association was we acted like facilitator, like supporter, because for new training program or from, let's say, for R&D activity, we engaged our commercial player like vendor, assistant integrator, as they provided a lot of equipment. We typically, when we have a new opening of center, we typically invite all this, our community and vendor and commercial players. They typically make a gift, like they support with equipment, with software, and so on. And also we act like strategists. So because this KPI and all this direction our association provide to university to guide them in market environment which is enough complex and complicated, I would say. So how looks the situation today? We opened it last year, 2 centers, and started in Kharkiv, Odessa, and started a series of networking event in Kiev with 2 universities. So this year there will also be opening of such center in Dnipro, Zaporizhzhia. It's a very industrial city, industrial region, also in Sumy and west of Ukraine in Lviv. Typical scenario of opening center, it looks like one-day conference where we, as I said, we engage, we attract all our community, different actors, and there are many presentations about technologies, about ecosystem, about cooperation, and so on. Second day, we typically visit industrial enterprise because the main idea is really to how to engage end user and really to make a real connection to market. It's to show how it works. And typically, we visit in the best industrial enterprise in the region. For example, the picture about you see Interpipe Steel is, and every time you consider not just overview, but we look for real cases more or less connected to Industry 4.0. For example, Interpipe, it was a case of vertical and horizontal integration in manufacturing. In here below, it's machine builder enterprise in Kharkiv, where we consider it case of advanced planning scheduled system. Well, so it's typical, let's say, scenario of today event. And just to show you how it works, this is to show you result of our center, which was opened first. It's in Odessa. You can see here the team. Viktor Egorov, he's head of the team. There are many young guys, but they are really very proactive, and well, they made a lot of say motivation, inspiration to whole market, whole our community of university. So what result did we have? Look, first of all, they were lucky. I would say lucky because they won the first grant, a good grant for more than 100,000 euro, and they bought more than 300 equipment units like robots, machine tools, and so on. And also they are well equipped with other facilities. They have more than 100 meter square of laboratories. But all the rest is the level of their proactivity and their motivation to work with the market, because they became the Fab Lab. Maybe you know this worldwide network of Fab Lab laboratories. They also became like center of expertise of well-known Western provider like Universal Robotics, like Komosi, like Festo, and so on. Typically, they are very active in many competitions in robotics, mechatronics, and automation. Also, they are very active in prom activities. They typically engage a lot of students, even children, and also commercial player. Well, training program, it's very correlated to provide their equipment, and very active on the market, provided more than 30 events like here. Well, it was almost all about like example, and maybe coming back to the strategy, to more general topic about Industry 4.0. Well, in our strategy, every time we consider it, what can be, what element on what let's say, approach in our cooperation in Industry 4.0 is the key, what is more important, more powerful. But finally, we found that it's there is no unique element. We cannot say that the most important end user or software developer or, I don't know, scientist, for example. In fact, and what we found like confirmation in European Union, because this is a picture on the right, it from analysis of European Commission about implementation of Industry 4.0 in 8 countries, leading country in Europe. And you see here that the driving force of 4.0 is collaboration with different actors. So we had the same experience, but we went to this in our own, let's say, life or experience, that the most important is common vision and value. Because even, for example, we talk to IT industry, to software developer. We say, guys, you are really skilled. You work on global market. Let's go with us to provide maybe some innovative local solution to local customer. But we discovered that many software developers just don't want that, because they don't consider local market like in their goal, in their vision. They want immediately go to Silicon Valley. So it's quite different vision and value. And of course, it cannot be a really effective collaboration in such case. Of course, I don't talk about all software developers, but unfortunately, we have many such of them. So if really we are targeted and focused on this common vision and value, and we attract all these players, we can be successful. This is our experience. We had also very good experience from international cooperation. Last year, we were in the common project EaP. Is a partnership with Poland. We were in project IoT cluster development with Lublin Science Technology Park, and it was really very richful and successful for us, this exchange. We made several exchanges with Lublin, with delegation from Lublin. We were in Lublin, in Kiev, in Tbilisi together. And we made a lot of practical, let's say, workshop and exchange and analytic works, how it's developed cluster in Poland, and they knew also about potential in Ukraine, and took a lot of useful things from Ukraine. And the second example is, but it's continuation, because we asked it how to develop not just a cluster, but maybe what is foundation of any cluster is innovative ecosystem. And in Tbilisi last year, we met Tune International from Germany. It was also a meeting in EaP project. And it was really very useful for us. We later, in last December, we attracted them into the first in Ukraine regional strategic session, how to develop strong, balanced regional innovative ecosystem for industrial high tech. You see this picture from in Dnipro, Agency of Development, and this is our German colleagues. And well, finally, it was very successful and also inspiring how we can cooperate and apply best European practice into local ground. Another axis, now it's almost oriented to the future, because Center 4.0, we discovered is quite similar to European concept, digital innovation hub. And maybe you know that there is already, it's like heart of this project, I4MS, which is also part of Horizon 2020. And today there are already, I don't know, there's tens or hundreds digital innovation hubs through Europe. Of course, it's very also useful for us to compare this approach. And what you see in red, we still miss in Ukraine, like access to best practice solution-based, because there is really many exchange between all these centers. Like technology brokerage, like access to fund, of course, in the European Union is much more developed, and we can maybe have we can benefit if we can be integrated into this network. So for this year, we target, we consider it like target, like our goal, to be better integrated into a network of digital innovation hub. Well, there is a lot of information on official site, you can see below. And just I finished my presentation with just a few words about our national strategy. So it was developed, let's say, last year, and it was also influence of Europe, of developed country, because if you look at the map of Europe, almost everybody today has a national strategy. I mean, it's really proved and at the level of state and managed by state. In Ukraine, till now, we did not have. We had just the overall program, Digital Agenda Ukraine, for whole sector of economics. But, well, frankly speaking, it doesn't yet work in Ukraine. So we needed some separate, well-profiled, well-specified strategy for many our strategic issues, strategic target in the future. So we developed the strategy. As you can see the picture with 6 directions of the strategy, like first one, synchronization with industrial innovation and many other policy. Second about, so every element here is a separate project. So if we say, for example, that we should create innovative system, or the first things we should do to make full audit, because in fact we don't imagine, unfortunately, till now, what is the real potential of our, let's say, hundreds of scientific institutes or hundreds of university, to what really can be useful and used for manufacturing or energy or utility sector and so on. And so on. So every element is like project, and other direction like digitization of K-industry. It's about safety, defense, export program, and of course integration with EU. Total budget is roughly €1 billion, and we also work now hard to fund this money. Well, partly from government, but we rather target some international and local donor and funds, because, well, it was not budgeted for this year. Resuming our experience in Industry 4.0, what are lessons learned in these last years? What I mentioned is that strategy should be really national, state level. We cannot work like IT industry, which self-sufficient in outsourcing. They work on global market. It is enough just to recruit right talent, right people. That's all. Industry 4.0 quite different. It's really demand a lot of funding, public funding, a lot of support from state. It's really long-term strategy, so it works only at national state level. Second, what lesson we say is that universities should be, before going abroad, before, let's say, trying to immediately cooperate with EU ecosystem, we found the better way is to be before integrated in own market. Because what we saw like fault with tattoo project, and in fact it's not only tattoo, we know very well this phenomena well known in Ukraine, like grant eating. So there are many such projects. We just spend European money and we don't see results. So we say that in-based growth is much more effective and faster in result, in the consequence. Well, it's maybe I don't discover America if I say that state is bad manager. Of course, in our interest to take leadership, we are business association. We, in many cases, we know much better how to work with public money or funds, and especially if you're talking that innovation should really be integrated in the market and the end user and so on. IT really can be key enabler. I mean, technology, also best practice. But we should anyway adapt all this practice, IT practice, to industrial segment. Because if you take just B2C market and pure IT approach to develop startup, it doesn't work in industrial manufacturing segment. We also found that if we develop some well thought and let's say well thought and enough argued framework and model, it helped a lot, and helped also to our university to to make many useful things like self-audit or understand what is innovative ecosystem, how it works, or about priority and so on. We developed a lot of different frameworks and models around concept industry 4.0. Even we say that university as state organization, it's really tough task to make them market oriented, but it's possible. It's possible. We found our own, let's say, receipt and way that we go this way. As I say, collaboration is really driving force. We push a lot of cluster approach really to make this collaboration still more effective. Finally, about international EU collaboration, really it was rich and fruitful and very useful for us, especially last year, to know many colleagues from our region. Yeah, we met in Tbilisi many colleagues from Georgia, Belarus, Poland, Baltic country. It's really very helpful. And well, what we say is the strategy is needed, but well targeted and synchronized step should be as well. So this is, you know, I mentioned it already, this famous slogan, think big, but act small, scale fast. So yeah, act small, step small. It's really very important to do these practical things. And finally, on my slide about cooperation exchange points. So I think, I believe, yeah, based on the last year experience, that we can and we are ready to have a much stronger exchange with, let's say, our neighbors and maybe others, what we call early mid-maturity level country, because we cannot make copy-paste with best practice, let's say, from Austria or Germany or France. It will not work in our country because country is quite different. But first criteria of difference we find it's about different level of maturity. Yeah, in all things, starting from state support and maybe finishing with some mechanism or tools or even mentality. So maybe we should, if we are talking about best practice, we should have much stronger exchange. And maybe we can develop something like action, what we talk in Tbilisi with Svetlana Klevtsova, that actionable partnership. I mean that maybe small steps, small program, but to fix up all this best practice in our region. And I'm not sure if our key issue is the same in Ukraine and other EaP countries, but I believe that maybe we should really have this special focus on three topics: how to develop truly innovative ecosystem for industrial high-tech, which is quite different from, let's say, healthcare or I don't know, e-government. How to speed up cluster development approach. Yeah, because we strongly believe that it's really, say, maybe our mainstream, our main way to develop Industry 4.0. And how to engage exchange our university science, because they are less market-oriented, but the most valuable in terms of innovation stakeholder. And of course, how to be integrated into EU program, because of course we recognize that it's quite useful, necessary from all point of view. Well, this is all about my presentation, our experience, and maybe I should switch, Christina, if maybe you can switch to question.
Thanks a lot, Alexander. That was a very, very interesting presentation. So yes, now it's time for the participants to ask some questions from Alexander, if you have any. So just please type your questions down in the conversation, and we will be answering them one by one. Alexander, do you see the chat box? Or
Yeah, I see the chat box. Yeah, for the moment, I don't see the question.
Yeah, Eva just wrote a question saying, we are open to establish new international initiatives. Feel free to contact us, Silesia Competence Center of Industry 4.0. So
yeah, I see.
Contact.
Yeah, thank you, Eva. Yeah, it's good. Well, I think my email is in the presentation, or you can, we can just exchange on this topic and. Silesia competence. Yes, very interesting. Yeah, because what I said about Poland, because Silesia is suggested in the west of or east of Poland, I don't remember. But it was really very interesting to see different approach south. Sorry, developed at national level. I know Andrzej Soldat, if I remember, who is head of Industry 4.0 in Poland. But we did not have too much exchange because we were mostly concentrated on Lublin Technical Scientific Park, and they are not so much oriented to manufacturing and industry. They are rather IoT and the B2C segment. But it was, anyways, was very rich in exchange and useful. So, and maybe waiting for other question. What I appreciated a lot, also help from our Lithuania's colleagues from Vilnius, Marius, I forgot his name, which recommended us and help us to make application form for bronze level in cluster certification in the European level, because you know that we are really care about quality of a different approach, cluster approach, and typically in Europe it's also work like quality grade, quality certification, so started learn in bronze level. So we were applied to this level end of last year, and we wait for result. But it's very interesting how other clusters, high-tech clusters are organized, because in Ukraine also it's not obvious. We have almost 40 clusters, and most of them are IT cluster, but in fact they work not like cluster, but like IT association of outsourcing company. Yeah. So that's why we are very interested how it works in other country, cluster approach, developing of high-tech, industrial high-tech. It's really, let's say, top topic of discussion here in Ukraine, in our environment. Yeah, because, well, it's as beside of our associations, there are many other several associations which goes the same way with cluster approach, developing innovative ecosystem. For example, we have very strong in Dnipro city, Dnipro aerospace cluster, which really very close to us in using also modern technology 4.0, also really close with using the same approach with cluster development. So we really push a lot now this, let's say, cluster exchange in best practice collaboration also to state level, because at state level, unfortunately, we don't have till now even coordinator of all this cluster policy. Yeah, and it's really tough. Okay, Anna. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's quite a good question. Yeah, what fiscal policy, regulatory policy? Yeah, it's really quite a good question. In fact, there are many things which was proposed in industrial and innovation policy. It's I don't remember exactly about fiscal policy, something like incentive for example, for foundation of industry park or techno park, but for sure we have such things put in industrial policy and innovation policy. The problem is that it doesn't work just because this strategy is not still accepted and proved by government. So, for example, a new industrial strategy was developed a year ago. but till now it's not proved. We have really this battle between, for example, machine builders or just people like engineering company. Every time they need access to cheap money, to cheap credit line, and so on, and they don't have it. So these are basic things we ask from government, and unfortunately we cannot still get it. At the level of policy, what we just planned and put into all this strategy, there are several measures, but what I mentioned, it like incentive for an access, incentive for innovator, incentive with creation innovation hub and accelerator, like tax not avoiding, but yeah, to do less tax and so on. IT sector is, I would say that they are privileged with all that because they have special taxation system where they can engage hundreds of workers and they don't pay tax like other sector, high tech sector do it. So in this term, in this sense, I would say that IT sector is really have very good condition in Ukraine, but it's not the case of industrial sector. And in fact, what we try to do now, really to do also benchmark, because there are a lot of discussion, even battle between some committee in parliament and government, what kind of incentive, what kind of fiscal policy should be provided, and it's not still resolved now. And from our side, we also are participant in this game, and we also do something like benchmark and to show how it's provided in, let's say, in Poland, in the Baltic country, maybe on the West country, just to push our government because it's really very slow. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Alexander. So I don't think there are any more questions. Please, if someone has a final question, please type it now. Okay, just a question received from Givi.
Givi, yeah. Nice to see here this, yeah. Yeah, as you see, I mentioned Tbilisi. What is my problem with the lack of... lack of development economic scheme. I'm not sure I will understand your question. Lack of development of EU economic scheme. Look, you know our friend Ivan Kulchitsky. He's much more better, let's say, educated in all EU policy. I'm not so much expert in all EU economic scheme EU provided to Ukraine. I know that, of course, we work with different ministry, and I know that there are a lot of program, a lot of technical help, so technical aid. For example, technical aid last year was at the level of €1 billion provided to Ukraine from EU. It's huge number up to me. But up to me, the problem is not at the side of EU, but it's rather the side of Ukrainian government, Ukrainian state bodies, because in such cases, well, in this example, I completely don't know where this money were spread out, were diffused to which, because we, for example, take our technical committee, we work a lot of harmonization of standards of our legislation, technical legislation, I mean, also there are many in Industry 4.0, there are tens of standards, how systems should be integrated, how it should be interact and so on, and all this regulated by international standards. So we do a lot of such, for example, cybersecurity. It's also about standard. But typically we work in our association, Industry 4.0, apply volunteer. We don't have any help from government to this topic. That's my point is that we, if we are talking about main problem with better integration to this EU economic scheme, firstly we should much better cooperate with at the local level.
Thank you, Alexander. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I think we can finish our session.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Alexander, once again for the great presentation. And as Svetlana just wrote in the chat, we will put on the presentation on our EaP Plus website, so you will be able to find the slides online very soon. And thanks a lot for participating as well, and we hope that you really benefited from this, and don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions later on or would like to contact us.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Thank you, Svetlana. Thank you, all participants. So if you have any question, do not hesitate to put to my email. So I'm open for, and our association, we are open for, let's say, cooperation and further project. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Alexander. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.